My name is Husky. I'm so happy to be here. Rings Unbound is popped, and then the entire team can run down into this bottom path. And for the second time today, we've seen one team in the pit, one team not yet in the pit, and then the flip just popping off. The Oscarada using their Floral Flourish, they take out the Hoopa immediately, so now Hoopa can't even bring everybody into the top path. What happened to Groveling? Stick manual mode Ho-Oh right there. Call him a Lightning McQueen, because that guy is drifting around the corners. They don't want to let them start running away with their levels, and luckily they are keeping that Charizard to a level 11. What we're saying, just believe it. Source, trust me, bro. They can get anything that's really valuable for them. They're so behind that they need a couple picks, but Pocket Rockets is just cleaning them up. The Gardevoir was able to get out of the Revenant Ren, but they were not able to escape the charge. Maybe Ceruledge, still with the Bliss Assistance, is able to pick up more KOs, but it allowed Badmash to just jump in and start picking members off. Hoopa never even got to use their Unite move, which could have been the game changer for Flippin'. It's so annoying. It has Sing, it has Cute Charm, it's the most annoying pink blob out of all the pink blobs. The dance party is unfortunately ruined. Mamo's very upset about it. Every little thing gonna be alright. Prime in prime position, you might say. StarTech in StarTech position or something like that. And there goes Sableye to perform the thing that Sableye does best, a 17-point back up. Let him do what he wants, and their job is to back him up. And that's what you should be doing as a carry. They're also pinging him right now, probably saying thanks for the great plays. The Blaziken is heavy into the Flux Zone, not able to get on the Gardevoir. They do go down. My name is Steel Agent Husky. Is that what they say? Do they say that? Who's they? Who's saying that? In the arms of the angel. What you just saw is my casting reel, a video of clips showcasing some of my best moments and what I can do as a Pokemon Unite commentator. Now, I'm brand new to this in the grand scheme of things, but Pokemon Unite is still a brand new game in the grand scheme of esports, so I'm using this as an opportunity to dive into what commentary means in this game. First off, you may hear words like casting and commentating thrown around interchangeably. The general gist of what this means is as follows. The casting or commentating role is generally the same in sports as it is in esports. They're the people who tell you what's going on and why it's interesting. Sure, you can watch a game of baseball with no commentary, but it just makes it all the more exciting when you get the commentator going like, and he makes the diving catch. That's why sports commentary, and more recently esports commentary, is such an exciting thing, because those people get to dictate the entire atmosphere of the event. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Both that and my experiences being a new caster in the scene. Not only that, I have enlisted the help of my casting partner to talk in depth about his experiences as well. That's right, Starlets. We're getting a Kyle jump scare. Hi, by the way, my name is Husky, and did you know that I'm just a girl? The first thing we need to do is we need to overview the casting scene. We need to discuss what this looks like in Pokemon Unite as an esport. Pokemon Unite has had 3 seasons of professional gameplay, a series that started each year around February and ended in August. This year is different because the Unite competitive scene has actually been very successful so far, so they're starting their series even earlier. But what we know about the scene's unfolding has so far existed in the 3 completed seasons. The Pokemon Unite professional casters are those beloved individuals who have appeared on the official broadcasts of major tournaments in the scene. Spraggles, Dubsnax, Zoinks, Wonderchef, Danley, Soph, Calosaurus, and others who only worked in Unite for the first season or so. Most often, Unite tournaments host 4 casters, with the exception of Worlds, who had 6 for the past 2 years. To compare this with other MOBA international tournaments, the English Dota 2024 International had 2 hosts, 2 sideline reporters, 8 analysts, 19 commentators, and 2 interviewers. The English League of Legends Championships had 17 casters and hosts, and they had 23 in 2023. I mean, these tournaments happen over the course of weeks, whereas the Unite World Championships has only lasted 2 days every year, but still, maybe there's some room to add some more broadcasted games, a a B-stage stream with casting talent, designated hosts and interviewers, or maybe just some more people in general. Hint, hint. Since there are so few professional Unite casters needed for official tournaments, the scene has had to develop a lot through grassroots tournaments and opportunities for more people to get involved. Granted, the Unite scene is much smaller in general than many of these huge MOBA games, but with so few professional casters, there has had to be kind of a general guess of how Unite's supposed to be commentated. We've tried many different types of commentary, but with a 10-minute game that's so unique to the MOBA genre, the casting is pretty unique as well. So let's talk about the casting roles, or at least our perception of how different roles are. Casting in Unite is commonly thought of as having 2 casters per match, one of whom is designated as the play-by-play caster, or C1, and the other is designated as the color caster, or C2. This is where the Kyle jump scare comes in.
Hi everybody. For those that don't know me, I am Steel Agent Kyle, a commentator within the Pokemon Unite scene. You might see me in tournaments commentating for things from Pandacorn Gaming, Unite Battle Hub, Luminosity Gaming, Engage GG, Articuno League, and even Unity Clash, which is across the pond a lot of the times. I typically lean more so within the play-by-play realm, but I do tend to flex within color commentary depending on who I'm partnered with. So play-by-play commentary is what most people tend to think about when they think about casters or commentators. It's typically what is happening in the moment. So you're describing what you're seeing on the screen. So as a play-by-play commentator, you're really digesting the information that's on the screen, and then you're pointing to the viewers what's important. So you're kind of relaying them what they need to be watching to, what they need to be paying attention to in the moment that it's happening.
Dragon Current comes out from this Gyarados. Now they're looking to hunt down that Pikachu. They come up back to the top of the Thea Sky Runes. They're now going back. It was a bait.
The things that are kind of important within play-by-play are vocal intonation, pacing yourself, and really bringing the hype and excitement to the booth.
Oh, but the Emerald two-step has something to say about it. Huge double KO and make it a 3-piece combo. Umbra Vulpium gets a bit of XP and a bit of pressure off their side of the map that they so desperately needed in that moment.
You're really the one that is going to set the tone, the energy within the casting space. So you really want to make sure that you're able to speak clearly, and then oftentimes speak quickly.
Gonna find this Buzzwole. Buzzwole picks them up, but here's the fight. It's starting early. Revenant Renda's out. They take out the Buzzwole. They take out the Eldegoss. Now they're looking to take out the Sylveon. Sylveon pops the Fairy Frolic. Big Thunderbolt Thunder combo from Pikachu, and just like that, Gatlu, there are 4 members down for Sweden, and Italy looking to take the ring.
I have positioned myself as a color caster, which I like to think of as the one who talks about what already happened or what might happen in the future. Play-by-play talks about the present, color talks about the past and the future. We have the responsibility of leading into a fight and picking up the pieces after it's over. We spell out the plays, the compositions, the items, we talk about the state of the game and what it means for the 2 teams. We tell you about the focus bands that were popped, the Unite moves that were expelled, the positional decisions, the supports being the unsung heroes, and the picks that are excelling in the match. I mean, without Decidueye, Orange team was probably thinking they couldn't really take Rayquaza in that moment, especially knowing Mimikyu was still up. We also tell you about the mistakes, the wasted Unite moves, the carry getting caught, the mistimed secure move on Rayquaza. We're the critic and the appraisal, the one making stupid jokes and the one telling you exactly when you need to be serious. You know, with the Hoopa Unite move, you can make sure that you bring in those members of the team who are backcapping, but targeting the Hoopa was huge. We're your biggest fan 1 minute and your biggest hater the next. The color caster is just that. They provide a new way of viewing the match by filling it with color. As a color caster, you tell your audience what to feel about what you're seeing, how to interpret the match at hand, what you need to take from the experience of watching what you're watching. Regieleki was getting chipped down in the top path, Zeraora immediately gets that secure, Rings Unbound is popped, and then the entire team can run down into this bottom path. So even though Prime picked up that basement Regice, the Star Tech team was able to come down and make a really, really good push. As a researcher in the science field, I consider the play-by-play caster to be the results, and the color is the discussion. The most important thing about research is the results, what you found. Without the results, there would be no discussion. But the discussion tells us why these results are important, what they mean, how you should feel about it, and how this work might change change the course of history. And it's up to you, the researcher, the caster, to convince us that it will change the course of history. This match, right now, is the most important thing in the world. If you, as the color caster, don't believe that to be true, nobody in the audience will either. They don't want to let them start running away with their levels, and luckily they are keeping that Charizard to a level 11 while the Leafeon is level 12. And they are looking to potentially push this right here. Leafeon does have its Unite move available. Recent grassroots organizations and tournaments have developed the role of the host, or desk analyst, which is a third person who takes control of strictly broad analytics. While the color focuses on analyzing the events of the game at hand, the host, or desk analyst, analyzes the match or a set from a holistic perspective, often chiming in with knowledge about specific strategies teams should follow, what the projected outcome is, and the history of the teams. It's a role that hasn't been fleshed out yet, because professionally, it hasn't really been done. But I believe it's a really important role that we really should employ more often. Organizations like Pandacorn Gaming, my organization, if you didn't know, have started doing this, kickstarted mainly by casters like Draku-san and Kyle himself.
So like Husky said, this isn't something that every broadcast that you're part of will have, but it is something that's new and not a lot of places are doing it, so it can provide some value and some consistency to the table, depending on the role. So the host, and when you typically think of a host, you're thinking about that person that is really being that quarterback of that conversation. You know, they're the facilitator of it. Typically, you know, someone that brings the stream in, someone that maybe helps with facilitating the draft. Maybe there's 4 or 5 people that are commentating the draft. So they're gonna be that facilitator, that point person who's directing the traffic, really. Welcome on in, Pokemon Unite trainers. We are so back. Arcuna League season number 5. Week number 2 of Unity European Cup. If there's a sponsor to the tournament, they're gonna help with the ad reads, talk about the sponsors, anything that might be important as part of a contractual obligation. Desk analyst, this is someone who's really supposed to be that true pro. So it's often someone that is going to be really involved in the competitive meta and the competitive landscape. Someone that might be either on a high performing team or even someone that has helped with coaching in the past, or just someone in general that's well aware of the meta and wants to be very knowledgeable about the teams, knowledgeable about the players, who's playing what. So it's going to be someone that is really ingrained in the culture. And typically what this desk analyst is there to provide is either draft analysis, mid-game analysis, and even post-game analysis. So they're going to be giving really deep meta information, why something was picked, maybe why a specific player is picking something in the mid game, how it's been used in the past. We just lost Leafeon for EXO. Ribbon, what are you seeing? What does emotional damage need to do to turn this one around?
I feel like emotional damage needs to get more priority on this Absol into this backline on top of this Pikachu. This Pikachu's getting, honestly, a lot more value than it should, I feel like. They're landing a lot of really big combos, and this Mew is just not able to outpoke. I really feel like they need to get on this backline trade because this Leafeon is only going to get more and more out of control as time goes on, and the Absol is going to need to keep up.
Yeah, double KO for Serena in this top fight. Emotional damage did take that Lecky. How it's been used in the past, things like Draku's channel has used like a mid-game analysis. On the Pandagorn Gaming channel, we've used them as like a pre-Ray, like at the 3-minute mark. So there's a minute until Ray, providing that analysis like, what can this team do to get back in? So it kind of gives a nice little break in the middle of the game, but then is also someone that can kind of help talk post-game.
Generally, the roles of Unite tend to be a little blurred, especially because it's a 10-minute game, but this is just the general gist of the roles. Usually a C1 will have to do some color, and a C2 will have to do some play-by-play here and there, so it's generally a good idea to have a decent understanding of both. Kyle and I recently went through a sheet he made on stream where we talked about what happens in our ideal match, what casting a game of Unite should generally look like. Now, I will say that trying to put every game into a single box is not ideal, because each game itself is a brand new experience that can never be reproduced. It's like doing improv comedy. which I don't do, but I've observed quite a lot of, the punchline is never the same. Though Unite is a 10-minute game where the same things generally happen, like you can expect the 850 birds to spawn at 850, you can expect the 7-minute objectives at 7 minutes, you can expect Ray at 2 minutes. Besides these known factors, though, the game itself is unsolved, which means casting is unsolved too. But for the sake of simplicity, and because both Kyle and I are Geminis who love our damn spreadsheets, we have created our ideal match. Let's take a look. The first thing we see is draft, the forgotten part of casting that often goes unnoticed, but is personally my favorite part of the entire game. It's where you can introduce people to what's to come and make predictions that you can visit later. It's where people who may never have seen any of this can be introduced to the game in a meaningful way when we talk about the picks teams are making and why they're important. Generally, we try our best to follow the play-by-play and color roles in draft as well, where we have play-by-play discussing the bans and picks themselves and color discussing the analytics, the why behind the bans and picks.
Arguably, the draft is the most important part of a Pokemon Unite match. It's where one team completely shut down their opponents with a strategic pick, or your own team can even blunder away your chances at certain points in the match, thinking about like things like, oh, they don't have enough rip. They don't have a secure tool for a contested objective. One common mistake that we see new commentators do is focus too much on what the viewers can already see on their screen. Everybody can see that Pikachu was picked. Everybody can see that Miraidon was banned. The reason why we are casters and we're commentators is really to bring the why. And draft is that really crucial part of the commentary where you're able to get some buy-in from the viewers. You're going to be knowledgeable about what you're talking about. So this is a really a big chance for not only the color commentator, but for the play-by-play commentator to even give a little bit of credit as well.
A Pokemon that's really, really strong, but we don't see too much of anymore. And that could be an answer to the Blaziken top lane pick, which is really strong, but Lucario, because it doesn't have to evolve, it has a bit of a stronger early game, so trying to counter the Blaziken from getting all those early stacks. Then we get into the game. As the game begins, the color hands off from their final team composition analysis to the play-by-play who talks about the pathing decisions. There tends to be some downtime here where the color can mention strategies and set up for the first scuffle that tends to happen in path, or in some cases a central area invasion. We are seeing Meowscarada take the early jungle, which does make sense. We could also see Cerulege taking it, but Meowscarada is one of the speedsters that needs much more experience to get online early, so giving it that early experience is definitely beneficial. There's some back and forth, some analysis, and some early KOs and stacks, and then there's the first big engagement, usually the 850 birds. This is the first point in the game where handing to the play-by-play at the correct time is tricky because you can't say for sure that a fight will break out at 850 exactly. Sometimes it's a few seconds before or after, but you know something will happen. The same can be said for every objective. The 7 minutes, the potential objective trading we see, the Ray fight, everything. But let's get back to the game. Generally after the 850s, the casting meta is structured around weaving through the team fights. You can expect team fights at each objective where you have the color analyzing what might happen in the fight, and the play-by-play talks about the fight, and then the color analyzes what happened afterwards. Sometimes you can also have fights at goal zones, random fights over farm, and things like that, where the balance between the two casting roles really comes in. They did not want a Regieleki walking into their base. 3 go down on the Return Link, 1 down for Varookt. So ultimately, Varookt wins that fight, but I feel like that was the play. You gotta sacrifice yourself to make sure they don't get that base Regieleki.
Yeah, because that just prevents you from doing so much, right? You have to have at least one teammate back to make sure that it's dealing with it, and that's time that it's not farming, as we do see a big KO coming through from Hoopa. Now the ring's unbound there.
There are some key things that Kyle listed in the sheet specific to each of the roles, so let's talk about them. Color talks about wins and losses in a fight. This could mean KOs, unite moves, or other resources expended, a goal zone broken, or an objective secured or lost. Color also talks about advantages. This could be in levels, the current score, or resources available, saying that going into the next objective, the purple team has 3 unite moves available and orange has none is a big thing to set up the audience to be looking for those Unite moves to be used in the fight to come. Play-by-play talks about what teams are doing between big fights. Maybe a team member is pushing to get some stacks. Maybe you have some farming happening to make sure someone gets their Unite move back. Maybe teams are circling around each other and avoiding fights. Even if there isn't a big fight for the play-by-play to show off their fast talking skills, they still have a lot to say throughout the mundane parts of the match to get the audience excited for. Color discusses objective, splitting, and trading. This often leads to an interesting discussion about strategy, and the play-by-play can weigh in on it as well. Are they pushing Regieleki? Why? Are they deciding to give up bottom objective? Why? Things like that. Play-by-play is the main hype person of the fights. They call the action like it is. They yell about the fights. They scream about the double KOs. The biggest moments of the match are the play-by-play's time to shine.
Miss, here comes a Pikachu engage. Big thunderstorm. Gonna take out the Mamoswine. Mamoswine is not able to utilize their Unite Mirror. Azure Spy Vision is popped, and wow, these Pokemon are going down. Ultra Swole Slam doesn't come out from the Buzzwole, so Italy is falling like flies. Sylveon down, Ceruledge down. It's just this Hoopa. Rayquaza getting chipped. Rayquaza at half. Pikachu with a 4 KO streak. There's gonna be a hope and a prayer, but Italy is all down in Sweden.
So this is where things get a little bit spicy. The mid to late game is where games are won and lost, and really where we start to see some teams either pull away or maybe a team is starting to claw back. This is where color commentary will provide the most value, because there's a lot to be gleaned where teams are and what the teams are putting stocks into. Are they clawing back by offlaning? Are they falling behind because they're not watching their goal zones? Do they find a pivotal KO that really shifts the level advantage in one way or another? These are all things that some Unite players don't necessarily know, or that the audience will want to better understand. I mean, you think about your solo queue matches, how many times you see someone feeding. Well, why is that a big deal? Why is this catch of a level 13 Ceruledge at 5 minutes who has been dominating? Why is them getting KO'd there a complete blunder for this team? So that's kind of the type of thing that a color analyst is really gonna bring to the table and provide a lot of value on.
Yeah, if they can get anything that's really valuable for them, they're so behind that they need a couple picks, but Pocket Rockets is just cleaning them up. 3 members down, Snorlax having to run for their life.
Generally speaking, there'll be a lot of back and forth between the play-by-play and the color from about the 3 to the 6 minute mark. The way that these team fights, the goal pushes, and the objectives that happen in that time span, until that defining moment in Rayquaza, it will be generally pretty fluid, because a lot of the timers might not be synced up, so there's not gonna be a definitive, hey, at 5:27, this is going to happen. The game's fluid. That's why we play a 10-minute game, right? But really, this is where the color commentator is going to provide the most value, because they're gonna be able to tell the story of what teams are putting stocks into, what their macro plays are. Because generally at the halfway mark, we should know who's generally in the head, who's generally behind, and what the teams are doing. Are teams clawing back by offlaning? Maybe they're super low on level. Generally thinking like anything that a newer player might not know is always something good to tell. Not a lot of people know about the comeback experience mechanic when you look at the greater picture within this game. So that type of stuff is going to be really helpful as a color commentator. Generally, during that time, the play-by-play person will continue to focus on the big engages, team fights, and what's happening in the moment, where the color is going to focus on that big picture or macro move.
Volpium is going to be able to likely secure that basement objective, but still, Assurance can continue putting the map pressure on as they are already in a score lead, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to try to force this Regieleki in.
Oh, but the Emerald two-step has something to say about it. Huge double KO and make it a 3-piece combo. Volpium gets a bit of XP and a bit of pressure off their side of the map that they so desperately needed in that moment.
Late game is another thing. It's a whole other beast, but it can be a little bit more scripted. Usually the moments before Rayquaza, around the 2:30 mark, will be kind of a pivotal moment for that color commentator to, again, provide a lot of value. This could also be a good moment, even a little bit before that, where the desk analyst can do something like that. But really, this 2:30 mark is generally the last chance to call out any notable things. So things that the color commentator would want to look out for. Which team might have more secure? Which team has more rip? Are there any important power spikes that have just happened or maybe have not happened yet? Any Unite moves that are online? This not only helps out the audience, but it also helps out the play-by-play commentator with where really to start the fight. And the Ray fight is going to be really where the play-by-play commentator puts the most work in the match. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of other gauges leading up to that point, but the Ray fight is really that shining moment. That's the big hype moment. That's what everything leads up to. So really, it's the most important objective of the game, and generally the play-by-play will try to call those engages. But there will be moments in the Ray fight, right, where there is a little bit of a lull in action. Maybe teams back up. Maybe, okay, two members went down, but that team, the opposing team doesn't have enough rip. Maybe the Pokemon that could rip the objective is down as well. So you don't really have either team going for it. So this is where, again, the color commentator can really ping pong and step in. For example, a play-by-play commentator could say, Delphox getting a KO streak of 3. And then the color commentator could come in and say something like, oh, but purple sides, they're still down. They don't have any rip of this objective, before handing it right back for that next chunk of the action. And then again, this is really where communication is key, and it has to happen before the match starts when you're working with your partner, to make sure you're on the same page of kind of how things are gonna go. But they're only finding the back of the Pokemon Center. They're heading back to Nurse Joy. Sableye going down. This Crustle might be next on the block.
The Rubble Rouser is popped and the eject button is popped with it. Here comes the Spark. Zeraora looking for a discharge onto them, but everyone else is there and ready to pick up the Zeraora. Overheat comes out, isolating the Leafeon. So here's the thing. Since Unite is so new in the grand scheme of things, we are sort of just now developing opportunities to get into casting for people besides the 6 or 7 pros that are commonly utilized for championships. Organizations like Pandacorn and Engage have popped up semi-recently, and they bring on casters to use for their own in-house events. We have leagues with different teams competing over the course of a few months, like the Articuno League and the Indigo League. Sometimes the casters are what draw in the viewers to grow their organizations, or maybe I personally like to feel this way. Creators are starting to feel comfortable creating their own tournaments where they bring in different casters to represent a variety of experiences and skill levels. Creators and casters like myself are creating opportunities to cast for the community or educate about casting, see Husky for Hire or Kyle Steele Agency, and pro casters are offering their insights to educate aspiring casters through classes. But casters aren't the only things that people do to put on tournaments and create the opportunities for the casting community.
One of the other things is going to be observer. So the Magnemite eye in the sky. This is the person that is controlling that camera, controlling the view of where the audience is looking, where the casters are looking. And I cannot express how important this piece of a broadcast is, because generally the observer goes unnoticed. Most people don't understand how it happens or that it's good unless it's bad. If it's bad, it is very obvious. So the observer is a very crucial part of the broadcast for any sort of tournament that you're commentating for. This is what the casters see, and this is what they'll commentate off of. So it's really important that the observer understands the Pokemon Unite game flow, because they need to follow the action. They need to know who's going where, what objectives to look for, what's important, what's not important. Generally speaking, the preferred method to complete the observing is through BlueStacks. Yes, of course you can do it through Switch. Yes, of course you could do it through mobile. But BlueStacks is a phone mobile emulator, and the reason why it's preferred is because generally it has more controllability. So you can set hotkeys, so you can snap to a certain player pretty easily, and you could do it at a press of a button. Whereas on the Switch, you can only toggle it one Pokemon at a time. You can't target a specific Pokemon. And then the other portion of it is the panning. You can do very slow and controlled pans, which is obviously very beneficial to the viewer because you're not getting whiplash because of the snapping and the quick nature of it, which some people obviously wouldn't like, but there are also people that can really struggle with that because of medical conditions. So having a nice slowly panning camera is just a more enjoyable viewing experience for everybody. TOs and admins. So these are the frontline soldiers, for a lack of a better term, honestly. They start the tournament, they're organizing it, they're getting everything needed and everything set up so that we can have a successful tournament. They are creating the Start GG page or the community gaming page and setting up the rules. The rules are very important. How players behave, how players log in, how they check in, how they can be compliant with all of the servers. Like if it's an international tournament, they're making sure people follow the rules on which ping, which side people are on. There's so many things that can so many variables that can happen within games depending on the type of tournament. They're really that front lines to make sure everybody follows the rules. They enforce rule violations in accordance with what they set up. So if someone violates the rules, do they get disqualified a game? Do they get disqualified from the round? Those types of things. Or is it just kind of a warning system? So they're just making sure that whatever decisions need to be made are fair and within the rules. So that's kind of the purpose of those TOs and the admins. The producer, the shot caller, the runner of the stream, the captain, the person that runs everything in the background. They bring everything together, bundle up in a nice little bow and shoot it off to YouTube or Twitch or whatever live streaming platform that you're looking at watching a tournament on. So the producer will typically run all of the different sources through OBS or another program. And this will also mean that the producer will have different scenes for the different portions of the event, whether it's the casters just talking or the gameplay itself or the commercial breaks that you need, obviously, in between sets. So it's the producer's job really to make sure that the show runs smoothly. This means switching the scenes in between matches. It means updating the scores and the team names to make sure the audience understands, who's winning and who's losing in a set or what set it's in. It could also be different graphics, like maybe there's a replay scene to kind of show, what's happened. So there's a lot of different things that the producer does, and depending on the producer's skill set, you could have a more robust stream with different features to kind of help the audience, tell a story and what's going on. The other thing that the producer is going to be doing is they're going to be informing the casters of what's going on in the background. Maybe there's a disconnect and the producer is relaying, hey, we're gonna run to a quick break. Someone disconnected, they're gonna reset. Maybe they're telling it when the match is ready or when they're gonna be in vision. Because sometimes, generally speaking, it's good to know when you're gonna be on camera. So you could look in the camera. You can talk to you're talking to the audience opposed to, looking on the screen away. So it kind of gives you that ability to be a little bit more personable. So they're gonna tell you when you're on camera. Among other things, obviously. One other thing to note, too, is that sometimes, depending on the commentator, depending on their skill set, or where they're at in their Unite or their broadcasting career, maybe they're running multiple roles. There's plenty of broadcasts. Myself, Draku, have run the entire background, the back end, doing observing, producing the stream itself, and then also casting on top of it. So sometimes there are events where you're able to do that, but generally speaking, when there are multiple people available to be involved, generally it's a little bit easier to do one thing at a time, because I know from personal experience, if I'm doing the observing and the producing and casting, I know one of the things is gonna lack a little bit from my normal standards. But that is something that happens from time to time.
The casting scene is not without its problems, because of course it has them. There was a general air of gatekeeping surrounding casting until very recently, where many believed it was impossible to make a name as a caster without already being an established pro. Since the game is so new and offers so few professional opportunities, there was really no point in trying. I got into casting by accident. My close friend Schmeedy posted on Twitter looking for people to cast her tournament, and I jokingly said that I would. But with zero casting experience, she reached out to me and I did it. And I loved it. I really didn't think this was a thing one could do without prior experience, and I caught the eye of Pandacorn Gaming, which was just the beginnings of an organization at the time. They were trying to start their tournament presence and needed to sign some casting talent to advertise. They signed me with basically no experience and just this one tournament to go off, and I just went for it. Every opportunity I could get, I went for it. I quickly fell into the color role, and, well, this happened.
Oh, it's amazing to meet you. Husky, what do you think about what you've seen so far?
Masquerada all the way, baby! I'm excited to see double team Flower Trick because too many of my solo queue opponents play Night Slash and it's starting to really get on my nerves. We need some more Flower Trick players out there.
Amazing. Kyle, what would you like to see more of?
I mean, Gardevoir. Gardevoir has been absolutely crushing things like Tyranitar all weekend long. Has a crazy win rate right now, and honestly, more of it is just going to be great.
This was a highlight of my life. It was the most incredible feeling. I got off the stage and my friends were running over and hugging me and telling me how proud they were. I was there representing Pandacorn, and I truly believe things started looking up for the casting scene after this happened. If Spraggles and Dupesnax didn't have the idea to want to provide visibility to some other community members, I doubt Pokemon themselves would have. I couldn't be more thankful to the two of them for giving me that chance. I got really lucky. Honestly, people have been working their asses off casting for years and just never have been recognized in the community. Generally, favorability is placed on who will draw people in, and that hasn't been a secret that Pokemon has decided to put casters in who are popular and loved by the community. Now, the pro casters we have are incredible, so there really isn't anything wrong with that decision because personally I believe these casters that we consistently see on air are the best talent the community has, but it's not to say there isn't talent being suppressed because of this. It's really nobody's fault either. People who want to cast have had to try to build themselves up with very little feedback because feedback and opportunities to improve barely existed. Pokemon could very easily build Unite into more than it is, and I'm really not sure why they're not. It would give more of these talented casters opportunities to get their time in the sun doing something that has real output. Casting a game that we're not even sure if the developers and the Pokemon company care about can be a really difficult thing, especially if you're the type of person like me and Kyle who put everything into improving and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes our way.
I generally agree a lot with what Husky says here. The biggest takeaway is that there's really a lack of official Pokemon opportunities outside of the already established talent, those main core group of casters that Husky was talking about, which has been a main criticism within the commentary space, you know, that it's been a little bit more gatekeepy and that kind of stuff. However, I have a little bit different of a viewpoint here. When we look at the bigger picture, you'd honestly see that the sentiments of the criticisms of the main official Pokemon events might be a little bit exaggerated, at least bigger picture, right? The grassroots scene is thriving. There are more and more events. The opportunities are spread across not only the different organizations, but also in the different regions. Like when you think of North America, there's several organizations running their own tournaments. Luminosity Gaming Server is doing a ton, whether it's the Indigo League or all these different leagues. There's an Articuno League, there's a Weakness League. There's all of these other leagues that have opportunities within commentary. There's Pandacorn Gaming running a bunch of grassroots. There's Unite Battle Hub. There's so many different events all the time. There's not necessarily a lack of events. There's plenty of events. There's a need for more people to be skilled and practice these things so they are confident to be a caster, to be a commentator. And another thing, contrary to Husky's belief, I don't think that she was just lucky. I'll be straight up honest here. She's put in a ton of work to get where she is, and that work was recognized by the people. A lot of the people, a lot of you, a lot of her viewers and here on her YouTube, and just generally within the scene. She does an amazing job and she puts in the work and she backs it up. So she's earned a lot of what she's had come to her. So yes, there is a little bit of luck that's involved, but it's a lot of practice, right? When I also look at kind of some of the problems within the commentating space, you know, when I look at it as someone that has hosted a production, that it's casted, that's done some observing work, it's not necessarily that there's a lack of opportunities. It's a lack of awareness of how to get involved. People generally seem interested, and obviously based on some of the discourse that we've seen around casters, there's a lot of people interested in doing it, right? But sometimes people don't necessarily know where to start or even how to get involved. And you know, there's still a lot of work to be done, and that's where practice comes in. It's really important to get better at your craft. Can we enter a Allen Iverson clip here? We talking about practice?
I mean, listen, we talking about practice.
Before we wrap it up, let's touch on starting and practicing casting. Like I said, I started by accident. Before my first tournament, I grabbed a random raw feed on YouTube and just tried to cast over it myself. I had no idea if I was play-by-play or color. I didn't even know what those things were. It wasn't until I found somebody I was comfortable casting with who wanted to help build me up that I started to really understand what I was doing here. For me, that was mainly Kyle, but it was also so many of the people at Pandacorn who believed in me and welcomed me despite my inexperience. It was even the pro Unite casters who have been kind to me and welcomed me into the greater Unite community. It was Spraggles and Dupesnacks for letting me be a part of a major tournament. But now that I have the information that I have some recommendations for how to start, and it's not whatever it was that I did. Generally, you need someone to cast with. Most people in the community are incredible and will be very willing to coach or cast with you for fun. Kyle and I are starting to hold weekly practices on stream, and we would be happy to have you. Decide what your strengths are. I mean, pick the role that sounds the most fun to you, but after learning the ropes of it, figure out what your strengths are. This is where somebody to cast with also comes in handy, because if you can find someone you trust to give you honest feedback, that's one of the best things you can do. Listen to how the pros do it. Understand how they're alternating between each other and how it's so seamless between them. Get an idea of how they handle fumbles or mess ups. See what words or phrases they fall back on. Practice whenever you can, because there really is a flow you can reach, and if you fall out of the flow, it can be harder to get back into it.
Oh, a lot of this that Husky is talking about, it's spot on. Some of my biggest recommendations when it comes to practicing your craft is just do it. Seriously, just do it. If you have not commentated ever in your entire life, you're going to be bad at first, so just do it. Practice alone, practice on your couch, utilize the spectate function and just start talking, just start yapping. Next, talk to the right people. I think it's so important to build connections within the community. You never know what's going to pop up. One of the recommendations in that same vein is find a team, a competitive team, find a streamer even that hosts customs and ask to be part of commentary. If there's a streamer that often hosts custom games and they have a lot of lobbies and it's just them, ask if they'd be interested in doing co-commentary. So this is exactly how I started. There's a friend within the community that hosted weekly customs, and I just started doing it with him, and I fell in love with casting. I fell in love with doing the commentary. I thought it was a really fun thing to do. Little did I know I had a lot of work to do, but it was really fun and I wanted to do the work. There's so many pro or semi-pro or amateur teams that do weekly, daily scrims that you can ask to be a part of. Otherwise, you can always find like previous broadcasts and stuff like that as well. Get involved. Seriously, get involved. Sometimes if you want to be a commentator, you need to start by helping out with other portions. We talked about it earlier. There are so many different roles within a tournament that it takes for the tournament to be successful, whether it's observing, whether it's producing. And you'd be surprised when you're in those production calls of how much you pick up on not only just how things are run, but different little tips and tricks to get better at commentary. So seriously, get involved. Talk with an org, look for them to open up applications to help with those different things. And there's so many different ways to get involved. You may find out that maybe you don't like casting, but holy cow, you love observing, or you love being that shot caller in the production and putting on a really good show. Be open to feedback. Not only that, but ask. Find someone who will be blunt with you about your strengths and about your weaknesses and what to work on, because there are so many times, I think Husky mentioned it, people just say, yeah, you did a great job, but you're not getting valuable feedback. So you got to ask. Another big portion of that is watch your VODs. Watch them back. Did it make sense? Did your words come out right? Did you say the right things? Was the flow good? Did you have good handoffs? All things that you can kind of pick up and gauge how you're doing by watching them. But the biggest thing that you can also do is just find that partner that you want to get better with. If you could find a partner that is on the same wavelength as you, that's going to make things so much better. Someone that wants to improve in the same way that you do. I think that is everything.
Well, that's everything. Hopefully you've enjoyed my long-awaited return, and I will do my best to continue putting out quality videos whenever I can. Give me a like and subscribe and all the other buzzwords, and thank you so much to Kyle for helping me out with this one, and I will see you all next time. Bye!